All right, so for the interest of time, I'm going to get started because we are going to be talking about a topic that scares the bejeebus out of a lot of people. So first of all, welcome to our second Tech Talk. If you weren't at our last one, this is a time where we can have a chat and learn more about various kinds of technology and programs in a very judgment-free, relaxed way. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about SharePoint. My name is Faith. I'm the State Association Specialist at CapND. Can you guys see on the screen where it says Tech Talk? It's a little purpley background. Can you guys see that? All right, I got a thumbs up. So we're going to talk a little bit today about SharePoint, hopefully giving you guys a base for building your level of comfort with the program. So there are a few notes that I want to give you right out the gate before we jump right into SharePoint. The first of it is that we're going to start by focusing in a perspective of somebody using it, not the person that's building it, not the person that's editing it or administrating it, purely as somebody who's going to be using it. So the information I'm going to give you will help you understand what you're looking at, how to get there, and how to log in and move about a little bit. The other thing I want to tell you is that I am not the only expert on SharePoint. Everybody has a different way of thinking about it. So when I'm throwing out metaphors about how it's built and how to think about things, just know that if you go to another SharePoint Tech Talk or somebody else giving a training, they might frame it in a little bit different way. This is the way that I think about it, and it's easiest for me to use. Maybe as you're learning, you'll build out something that you'll be able to do from your frame of mind. So just so you know, it is a very customizable platform. So everything that I'm telling you is something that is available on SharePoint, and other people can look at it that way. But you might also see SharePoint people giving it, and it looks different than the way that I've created or set mine up. So I wanted to give those couple of caveats. I'm by no means the expert, but I do have a lot of experience with SharePoint, and I love this program. So we're going to start off with talking about, first and foremost, what exactly SharePoint is. SharePoint is a web-based collaborative platform. It's a website where you make more websites. It allows organizations, so schools, companies, nonprofit groups, the ability to create, store, and share various kinds of content like documents, spreadsheets, pictures, links to other resources. It can be used as a very secure place to store, organize, share, and access information throughout an organization. So if I want to make sure that my whole organization has access to a time off request sheet, I could put that on SharePoint, and other people could access and share that same form up in the cloud. SharePoint is a very customizable platform. It is often marketed as a document management service where you put documents and then you look through the library and you find your documents and you use them. But it can function as an organization's intranet. An intranet, I put the dictionary definitions, but it's a restricted network of computers or people that limits access to internal users. So people who work for that company or those that were invited into that company. In contrast to the internet, which we all know is that big collection of networks known as the World Wide Web. So anytime you pop into, I was going to say Internet Explorer, but they finally shut it down. So Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome, you're on the internet, and it's largely available to anyone. The only restrictions are based on each individual website. So that's a brief overview about what SharePoint is. So you guys kind of know what I'm talking about. Here in Community Action, we started to implement it just a little bit more so that people are able to share information with me without having to flood inboxes or fax papers that might be missed. Mail it to me and it could get lost in the mail. SharePoint allows us to collaborate, and it's a way that I can share information with you and you can share information with me. So we're going to look first at some terminology and how I talk about it. Once you kind of have an understanding of what it is, it becomes a little less uncomfortable and scary to use. So first, we're going to talk about sites. I always talk about SharePoint sites. If you're at a meeting with me, I say I put it out on the SharePoint site. If I'm creating something, I tell you I'm making a SharePoint site. So SharePoint sites are basically containers for information. Organizations can have as many sites that serve specific purposes or cater to specific groups of people as they want. I use the house metaphor because it is the easiest way to explain. Everyone kind of knows what a house is. So think of a house, and each room in that house is a site. So you have your bathroom or you have your human resources site. So each one of those rooms is a site. A collection of all the sites in an organization is a house, the whole house. So CapND, I have several sites or rooms in my site collection or house. So when you go to a SharePoint site, you're going to a room in CapND's house. However, each room can look a little different. It could function a little different, just like the rooms in your house. So there are two kinds of SharePoint sites. There is a communication site. A communication site is where you can share information that engages and informs their users. It's an everyday website. Think of it that way. So if you go to mickcrispy.com, which I don't know if it's an actual thing, but if you go to mickcrispy.com, you're not going to be uploading your important budget information to mickcrispy.com. You're coming there to find out some information, to look at things, to download some files, to send them a question, but you are not going to be using it to store anything. The second is a team site. It creates a private space for a group of people to work together. So you share your resources. You work on the same project together. It's where you would store your important documents. So if we go back to our house metaphor, and we're talking about the rooms in our house, your house might have an entryway or a foyer that everyone uses to get into the rest of the house. You might have a calendar in your entryway. You might have a whiteboard with important information that's displayed there. You might have a shoe holder where people will put their stuff that everybody can see and use. In that way, a communication site is for everyone. They can see what's important there. They can access things that everyone should be able to access in that entryway. A team site is kind of like a bedroom. Only specific people do specific bedroom-like things in there. They go to sleep in there. They change clothes in there. So just like a bedroom, the team site is specifically for certain people to do certain things. You wouldn't do things you would do in the bathroom in your entryway. That would be a little odd, right? You wouldn't do the same thing in your entryway. You wouldn't, hang up a blank check in your entryway for everybody to use that checkbook. You would probably keep that in your office. So sites is a way for you to delineate who can go into which group and what they're going to see there. And a communication site serves as something that everybody can look at, where a team site is where only certain people can go. Does that make sense to everybody? Does the house a little bit make sense? Are there any questions about the site and the site collection or the room in the house? And feel free to pop them in the chat. I know it is Thursday afternoon, so if you don't feel like voicing it out, feel free to throw any questions you have in the chat and I will keep an eye on it. All right, so just like the rooms in your house and the house, when you move in, it's empty, it's blank. So when somebody is creating or designing a house, they're coming across your rooms in a blank environment. They get nothing, maybe some template to work with. You have an idea, like a bathroom has a toilet and a shower and a sink. You have that built for you, but you don't know, you don't have any paintings in the wall or shower curtains. So we have to arrange our space and add our furniture and decor. So when you're on SharePoint and you're in a site, the first thing you're going to see is a SharePoint page. It is what is used to display content on any given site. Any site can have one page or 1,000 pages, depending upon how you are trying to arrange the information. Think of these web pages as the process of arranging areas and furniture in your room for separate uses. So for example, I might have a section in my living room where I work, my little office area. I may have a section in my living room with my cat tree and the cat toys, and that's the cat area. The same for pages on a SharePoint site. Maybe I have a SharePoint site specifically for a program. We have one for the North Dakota Rent Out program, and I might have a page that talks just about whole family. And I might have a page specifically for accessing training materials, and they each have their own purpose. So you have your house, which is a collection of sites. You have your room, which is your sites. And then within the room, you have different pages or different zones for different things. Now on a page, you can't just put up a page and say, this is for it. You have to put something on the page so people can understand what that section is for. If you walked into a blank room and I pointed to a corner and said, that's where I do my work, there's nothing to signify that that's where work happens. It's blank. So we use web parts that we put in there to use, store, and display information. So for example, if I want an image like I show on here on the screen, think of it as a painting. I'm going to go take the painting, put it on the wall, and then everybody can see it in that room. If I want to look at a file, or I want to keep files there, I might put them in a filing cabinet in my office. And in this case, I would put buttons to those specific things that I want to access, like a filing cabinet in a room. So you might need a dresser, an end table, you might need a closet. And so the person who's creating these things puts those out there for you so you can easily see on the page what you're wanting to do in those areas. Some are text where it's informative. Some are images because it's fun to have pictures. Some are things that you can click on to get more information out of, just like you open a drawer to pull out a file or find some spoons. Now, in order to decorate your home or arrange your spaces, you have to get your stuff from somewhere. So if you freshly moved out and you don't have anything, you're going to have to go to a store and get it. But if you are like me and you've moved like 50 times and you probably have a ton of stuff and you put it in boxes and you might use a storage unit, that is what a document library kind of is. It's a secure place where a collection of your various files and documents are kept. You can have multiple storage units, just like you can have multiple document libraries on SharePoint. Now, you can go into the document library and click on a folder and find that information and dig through till you find it. Or site creators and editors might create a page for you and take the information from that document library and put it on the page so that you can access it easier. I like to think about it this way. Would it be easier to find your great grandma's cast iron pan in the cupboard in your kitchen where you would use it, or in a box in the storage unit down the road? I think it's easier to find it in the kitchen, in the cupboard where I would cook and use it. The same can be used for pages. So in this example on the slide, the Emergency Food and Shelter Program folder has a lot of important information in it, and it's organized how I might be able to find it. But if I had somebody else come in and they want to learn about that program or access files, they're going to have to dig through all of the other files or all of the other boxes to find that one box and then open the box and dig through all of the stuff to find it. Or they could go to the room with all the stuff laid out and access it in that visually appealing, easier to navigate manner. So when you're using SharePoint, I don't want you to think about it as this big, scary place. What they're doing is they're giving you a place that's a home and a room with different areas to work in. That's all it is. It's like using the internet. You all know how to go to Google and search for something. SharePoint is a little bit like Google, but it allows for a lot more customization, and it can be easier to use than digging through your document library storage unit. So that is kind of the structure and terminology we're going to be talking about with SharePoint. Do you guys have any questions about how SharePoint is laid out, how your house looks, how your rooms look, how your pages look? how you would view SharePoint as a whole. All right. Well, then let's get started. Now that we kind of have an idea of what SharePoint is and we have a mind frame to work from. So we're working on looking at a house and a room in a house and the furniture and areas in the room in our house. Let's talk about how we actually find our house. So the first thing we have to ask ourselves when we are going on SharePoint is what kind of user are we going to be? First and foremost, if you don't have permission to access a site or a site collection, you're not going to be able to view it. That's a secure part. So if I send or give someone the ability to enter a site, say Rose, I give Rose the ability to enter the site, and Rose shares that site with Irv, who doesn't have permission, and he tries to go in that site, it'll tell him he can't go in. So that's the first thing I want you to remember. Next, there are two kinds of users. There are internal users. They have what's called the same domain, and they work within the same organization. What I mean by domain is I work within the CapND domain. My email address is CapND. All of my stuff is under that Microsoft account. So if I am in CapND's house or site collection and I live there, I'm an internal user. An external user is somebody who has a different domain. They work outside of the organization or for a partner organization. So for example, Irv is an external user. He's coming to visit my house. He needs access to my CapND site collection, my house. So I have to give him permission to enter my house. And if I don't give him permission, he can't come in. So an external user, think of them as your guests, your visitors, people that are coming to your house. They don't live there, they don't work there, but they're coming there because they're hanging out with you, or maybe they're having a sleepover, or maybe it's somebody's responsibility to clean your house. It's your dog walker. You're giving these people access as external users. There's not a lot of difference between an internal user and an external user, except for how you get there. And on the other end of it, when you're creating and owning it, what you're allowed to create and own. So I'm not going to let a visitor repaint my walls. That would be a little weird, but they can still come in and hang out in my space and look at my stuff. An internal user, somebody else who lives in that home, could come in and paint the walls if they wanted to, but they don't have to. So when you're coming to use SharePoint, think about it that way. Am I entering a house that belongs to somebody else, or is that my house? The biggest question I get is, how do I find my SharePoint sites? How do I find my house? So if you're going to somebody else's house, you take out your phone, pull out a map, you look it up, and you follow the directions to get there. It's a little bit similar to how you would find a SharePoint site, except for there are three really good ways. A SharePoint URL, the email inviter link, or a SharePoint start page. And I'm going to go through each of these and let you know their pros and their cons and which one I prefer, so that you can find the sites that you need, how you need them. So first is the SharePoint URL. It's usually sent by as a link through email or instant message by somebody that's already there, somebody that owns it. They send you an invitation some way. They're just going to give you the directions to get there. But if you don't have permission to go to that site, you're going to get a message like the one at the top here that says you need permission to access this item. Just like if you showed up unannounced to a stranger's house, they probably aren't going to let you in without an invitation. So for example, this site right here is one that I created that is a communication site. I've tried to make it easy for people to enter, but I don't want the whole world to see this information. So if you don't have access and you click on this link, it'll tell you you need permission to go there. We'll talk about how to get permission to go there in a moment. I find the URLs are one of the easiest ways to get there, but you don't always know if you have permission. So if I get a link to a SharePoint site from Utah and I click on it, I don't know if I've been given permission or not. So I am playing a guessing game. Do I have an invite to the party, or am I going to get stopped at the door? So SharePoint URLs and links are one of the easiest ways to find a SharePoint site. They're sent to you by somebody. They don't guarantee you access to the site unless somebody's already given you permission to be there. The next way is an email invite. So when somebody sets up a SharePoint site, they're setting it up for a reason. I want all of my North Dakota Rent Help staff to access this site. I want all of my veteran staff to access this site. I want all of my human resources to enter this site. So administrators and owners send users an email invitation, or they can, after they've been added, saying, hey, welcome to the party. Here's your invitation. Show it at the door and I'll let you on in. The invitations you get in your email are all going to vary slightly depending on what type of site it is and any customization and organization is made. On the slide, I provided 3 examples. You can see that they are all vastly different. They're all sent by me. It's just the kind of site and the type of invitation that was sent. Regardless, if you have this invitation and you show up at the party and you can prove that you are you can get in. This is the easiest way to know if you are allowed to be in a site and to find that site, because you are being personally invited and you've been provided the invitation and the link to get there. So if you're not sure and you receive this invitation, you should be able to get in. The final way that I'm going to talk about, because people come here and it causes a lot of questions and problems, is the SharePoint start page. Now, the SharePoint start page, which is pictured here, is accessed from your Microsoft Office app launcher. And I'm going to show you that when we go on a little tour of SharePoint here in a moment. But basically, if you're not logged into a Microsoft account, you are never going to get to this SharePoint start page. But once you do, if you don't frequently visit SharePoint, if you're an external user to a SharePoint, you're first starting out to SharePoint, the information on this page is going to be very limited. You might not see anything at all. So the one that you're seeing on my site, since I'm the one who's there all the time making these things, checking on stuff, you can see that I have a lot of information. But let's say Rose goes out and she logs in and she finds her way to this start page. She might just see a blank page. Or she might see one site, not 12. If you frequent like I do, it'll show you things like sites you're following, sites you visit frequently, news that you post on sites. That's like a roll above the news. Like you'll see up here at the top, this is news that I put on a specific site. It'll show you suggested sites. But this is probably the worst way to find a SharePoint site, because if you've never been to that site, it probably won't show up here. So let's say you opened a new business and you don't know how to get there, and it's in a new part of town that isn't on the map, and you try to find it and there's no map for it, and you come to the map and it's blank. It doesn't get you here. But if that is somewhere that you frequently visit, you're eventually going to have information that shows you how to get here. So for people who are frequent users to SharePoint like I am, the SharePoint start page is great. If you're not, I don't recommend using it. Use the link that you have, the invitation that you have, and I highly recommend that once you're at a site that you might be visiting more, to add it to the favorites or bookmarks in your internet browser. So that is how to find the site. So do we have any questions about how to find? These are just 3 ways for how to find, but any questions about how to find a site? I apologize, my alarm went off. So the biggest problem after you found the site is not being able to get in. So the first thing you have to ask yourself is, do I have an invitation to the party? Remember, SharePoint sites are like a great big party that's invite only. If you don't have an invitation and you can't prove the invitation is yours, it's not going to let you in. So the first thing you're going to have to do is verify that you're logged in using the information that is attached to that invite. So the email address that's attached to that invite. I have multiple email addresses. I don't know about you guys, but I have a ton of email addresses. So if I try to get into a CapND site with the wrong email, the bouncer is going to kick me out. You're not allowed in. I will get that access denied. So I have to take a moment to look and confirm, did I try to go into that site with the email I was invited with? In a moment, I'm going to lower this down. We're going to try to log in. I'm going to show you the different ways to log in. But you'll have to confirm that. And if you can confirm that you are logging in with the right information and you still can't get in, you're going to want to reach out to your SharePoint administrator. For CAP&D purposes, so those ND rent help sites, SSVF, anything that basically I've set up and sent you, that person is going to be me. But if it's a different organization, maybe your agency is going to set up their own SharePoint. That person might be someone who manages your IT. That might be somebody who knows your company intranet. That might be your coordinator, your self-sufficiency coordinator or a supervisor. So you want to find out who to ask. Hey, I can't get in. Did you give me an invite to the party? Because I can't do my work without my invite to the party. So my recommendation when you're logging in, and we're going to walk through how to log in and take a quick look around, is make sure you're using the right email to get in. And then if you still can't get in, reach out to whoever is giving you invitations to the party to make sure that, one, they sent you an invitation to the party, and two, they sent you the right invitation to the party. So I'm going to stop the PowerPoint presentation and I'm going to bring you over to logging in. So there are a couple of ways to log in. I'm going to just pull up a SharePoint site for a second here. So let's say I have that link. I have that email link to this site and I'm trying to get in. It's going to come back and say, who are you? Once again, you have an invite to the party, but you have to prove that that invite is yours. So there are a couple of ways. Normally, when I'm functioning in my house, I'm logging in with my CAP&D email address, the one that I live there with. And it's super easy. I just click on me and it takes me there. Here I am. I'm in. I have an invite to the party. I'm allowed in. I proved who I was and it let me in. So the problem comes about when you are not a resident of that home. So let's say I want to log in with a Gmail account that I got my invitation to, and I want to go to the party. I'm going to have to log in a little bit differently. So you're still going to get to the party, but instead you're going to enter in whatever email address that you need to get into. So for this first demonstration of logging in, I'm going to use my email address, my personal email address. Don't worry, I will delete myself from it when we're done, but I'm going to use a Gmail account. Now, this Gmail account doesn't have a Microsoft password, which is where a lot of people come with the problem. So I sent you an invitation to a Yahoo account and it asks you to log in, but you don't have a password. It's going to give you an option of ways to sign in. So first it says, I'm going to send you a code to this email address. That is the best way to sign in. So make sure you have access to that email address and ask it to send you a code. It's going to email it over to you. Don't mind that I think I've been hacked. That's a whole other story for today about somebody trying to buy Uber rides from me. But you'll get a single use code. You'll get an email that looks like this that says, hey, I want to log in. You're going to click send a code. It's going to give you the code. You're just going to take your code, pop it on in and click sign in. It'll ask you if you want to stay signed in, and then boy, howdy. Theoretically, there we go. Now I'm at the party. Maybe. Takes it a minute, but I'm at the party. So it let me in. It says I'm supposed to be here. This is a different site. We'll talk about that in a minute, but it says, yes, you have a code. You prove that this invitation is yours. You're in. If you have a Microsoft account, so you use Outlook, and I send you an invitation through Outlook, you might log in and it'll ask you for your password. So we're going to use that example after I log out again. So let's say that I am coming in as Senka. I have a feeling if I click on this though, it's just going to log me straight in. I'm set up weird and it remembered my password, but normally it'll prompt you to enter a password so that you can get in. So you would enter in the password that you use. I always say it's the one you use for your Outlook email, the one you use to check your email, and then you'll be able to get in. So for example, I'm going to pull up my agency SharePoint site again, and I'm coming in here. I'm picking who I am, I'm coming in, and it lets me in. That means I have an invitation to the party. Now, let's say I ask you, like, you're like, oh, I'm supposed to have access to this, this, and this, and I can't get in. And I respond to you, hey, what email are you logging into? And you're not sure what email address, you would come up here and it'll have, like, this one's a picture of my beautiful face. Maybe it'll have your initials, depending upon how much you've set up your Microsoft profile. If you click on that, it's going to pull up a little thing that'll tell you who you're signed in as. So you see down here, I have these other accounts that I could be signed in as. I'm not either one of those. Right now, I am this person. If I go to a different person, it's going to change if I'm allowed to access that site. So you'll see, I think I have access, apparently not. Apparently I do not have access to the site from this one. So it's kicking me back out to a SharePoint site I have access to. I want to make sure that when I'm logging in, I am picking an account that I have an invitation for. So we're going to pause for a minute before I go take you through a little bit of navigation. Do you have questions about finding your way to a SharePoint site, logging into a SharePoint site? You're all so quiet. It's a Thursday. Any questions? I see Darlene is using a rockin' background from when we talked about Zoom training. So we're going to go into a SharePoint site. Some of the SharePoint sites that you might access are going to have sensitive information that only certain people can see. That's the beauty of SharePoint. So this one is in all staff kind of thing. It has all the information. This is a communication site. On here, you aren't going to be uploading documents or finding things. This is purely informational. So not all SharePoint sites look like this. I designed this one, and this is how I made it look. So on here, you'll see our beautiful Twitter feed, because I felt like you guys should see our tweets. It'll have events and news and different pages. Now remember, pages are areas of a room or areas of a site with different information. So if I want to know more about weatherization, I'm going to go to that corner of the room or that page on my site, and it's going to give me information about weatherization. So remember, we've got our pictures, which are like our paintings, links to resources. It'll have links to videos. Maybe, think of it as your entertainment center and you're picking out a DVD. There you go. Or your streaming site. Do people have DVDs nowadays? I don't even know. But you'll be able to go out and you'll be able to open videos and photos and things like that. You may, while you're out here, you may decide that you want to go back to a different section of the room and you want to learn more about training and resources. So you go to that section of the room. Well, that section of the room has different things for you to do. So if you want to be a certified community action professional, you're going to pull that out and you're going to go to a page that talks all about being a certified community action professional. So this site is a great illustration of how this is just like every other website you use. You come in, you click on things, you learn things. It can take you other places. So I want to learn more. If I click on it, it's going to take me to a different website. But if you'll notice, this website functions just like this website. I'm clicking on things, it's opening up, it's giving me information. That's what a communication site is for. It's for you to see all of the information. You don't have to worry about uploading and things. That's the beauty of the communication site. Now I'm going to bring you to a team site. These are the ones that you guys are probably going to have the most experience with. You're going to want to know how to, you're going to want to upload documents there. You're going to want to find things there. So I'm going to bring you to the North Dakota Rent Help staff site, because I think a lot of you are either able to get into that, or if I built the site, they all look the same except for the communication site. They all have the front page and they all have like the weather, because I think it's fun that everyone gets to know what the temperature is outside. But you'll see that this site looks different than the site that I showed you as a communication site. This site, yes, it still has those paintings on the wall, that filing cabinet, but the filing cabinets hold different information. Information that I need to share with other people that are in that room. So for example, I need other people to be able to find our meeting minutes and agendas. So I have a specific file for those. So I'm going to click on it. It's going to bring me here and I can see that information. I can go into the box of minutes and go to the minutes. I can go into the box of the agenda and I can see the agendas. Or if I'm out here back on the home page of my room, I might want to check the announcements. Is there anything new out there that I need to know? Think of this like you're in your office and you have that whiteboard where people come in and write stuff, like that one over there in my office. I might go there to check to see if I have any notes or any mail or anything. Some of you have a calendar. That's what this is. It's basically the calendar on your wall. It's just the calendar on your page. The weather. All of us have like a weather app on our phone, kind of the same thing. It tells us what the weather is. So when you're coming into a team site, usually you're going to be collaborating with people. You're going to want to be putting your own documents there. You're going to want to put stuff in the filing cabinet. You live here, you visit here, you want stuff in your filing cabinets. So you're going to be working in the document library. Remember, that's like our storage shed. You want to put stuff in there so other people can take it out. So I'm going to take you to a document library. It is going to look, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the File Explorer on your computer where you save the stuff on your computer. It'll look like, if I can get mine to pull up, it looks exactly the same as that. And how you set it up, maybe if it opens, depends on like what kind of folders and files you're going to need. So I'm going to go to my, like here are all these files, right? These are all files and folders. Well, that's what this is. Files and folders, things that you're used to. So let's say I need to upload a tracking form. I need to upload a tracking form so that somebody else that is in my room with me can access my document. So they want to go into filing cabinet, pull up that document. There are a couple of ways that you can put files in and out. So the first is this upload button. If you click on upload, it's going to give you options. Are you uploading a file, a folder, or a template? Most often when you're putting things in a SharePoint site, you're putting in files. So you would select files. And I don't know why, but when I use Zoom, my computer is really slow. But you'll pull up files and it's going to pull up that window that you use when you're trying to open stuff. And you're going to go through and you're going to find whatever you're trying to upload. So I'm just going to pick something and we're going to upload something. So I want to upload this image to the site. So I'm going to pick it and I'm going to click open. And you'll notice that it'll have like a little thing that spins that says uploading one item. And then it'll appear in your library. Now, if somebody else, let's say it's Carmel, goes into this folder, she can now open that and look at it. She can move it. She can put it where she needs to. Let's say that I'm working on a budget with Christina. Christina and I are working on a budget. I can put the spreadsheet on here, and then I can tell her, hey, this is where it's at. She can go in and she can make her changes to the spreadsheet that's already there. So we can keep working together without sending an email back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with the changes. We can see them all here. So I'm going to pause because we just went through a lot. Questions? Oh, I have one in here. What about when you can't change your name or profile pic on your SharePoint? Okay, so you're talking about up here, this little guy right here with my name and my information. So that is dependent upon who is in charge of your email address. So for example, I am the administrator for CapND, so I can change all the stuff I want within reason. So I can change my name, my profile picture, all of that. Let's say that you have a CapND email address that has a different photo. You might have to go to this view account button where it will pull up your account, and you should be able to change minor details to it. You should be able to change your photo or your name. And if you can't edit something, it says, why can't I edit? And it'll tell you some details like your name, your job title, might be provided to you by whoever's running your IT. In CapND's case, I am the one who sets up like Carmel. So if Carmel come out here and there's something that she can't edit, it could be that she's not an administrator and can't make that update. Does that make sense, Abby? So if you want to update something and you can't, like let's say your name is spelled wrong. That's a common one that I would get questions about when I worked at Suncut at the front desk. They would say, hey, my name is spelled wrong. As an administrator, I could go in and change it, or whoever is doing their IT management company or person, I could reach out to them and say, this individual's name is spelled wrong. Can you update it? And they would use their special credentials to go in and make the update. So I would go, Abby, and give it a try. See if you can update your photo and things. If not, find out what email address it is. If it ends with this like capnd.org, that would be an email to me. If it is your agency specific one, find out who does your Microsoft or your technology on that end and see if they're able to make the updates you need them to make. Other questions? I love questions. I'm going to show you one more way to upload files that will make things easy breezy, lemon squeezy. So let's say I want to upload a file to this page right here. I'll go find a file if I have one available. And all I'm going to do is grab onto the file, drag it over, and drop it on in. And you'll see it says uploading one item, and bam, it's there. So if you have your File Explorer guy open on your computer, so where your files are stored, maybe it's on your desktop. If you have those, you can hold on to the item and just drag it over, and it'll upload. The problem with that is if you drag it to the wrong spot, it might put it in the wrong place. So my preference is to go to where I want it to be, go to the upload button, and then upload the file. Dragging and dropping is great, except for when you're in a hurry and you don't double check and then you put it in the wrong file, and then you have to look for 2 days, where did I put it? So I always like to use the upload button, but dragging and dropping is still an option. You just got to make sure you're getting it in the right spot. Now, let's say you're working with a group of people and this document is wrong. Like you have an updated copy of it. It was updated on your computer and not on here, and you want to replace the files. You can do that in 2 ways. You can take the file that is new, upload it again, and it'll ask you, hey, there's already a file here. Do you want me to replace that file, or do you want me to keep both of them? If you're not sure, keep both of them. I can go back to previous versions, and that's a whole other topic. But if somebody is not familiar with using SharePoint, they might not be able to go back and recover that readily. So if you're not sure if you want to replace it, you can click keep both, and it'll add that like 1 or 2 next to it. Otherwise, if you hit replace, it'll just replace that item with the updated version. This only works if the files have the exact same name. So if you had add to listserv 1, add to listserv 2, it'll keep 1 and 2 there. Let's say I uploaded this and I didn't mean to. My bad. Nobody needs to see that. What I do, there are two ways. You can come over here to these dots and go to delete, and it'll delete it. It'll ask you, are you sure you want to send this to the recycling bin? If it is a CapND SharePoint site and you delete something and you don't mean to, you can reach out to me. I can go to the recycle bin. I can find it. I can bring it back for a certain period of time. Not all files will let you delete them, especially if you haven't given permission to. So like I said, let's say Christina's in my home. I'm not just going to give her free reign to paint and repaint my bathroom. So she might come into my home and be able to add things or move things around, but she can't just delete the color of the wall. She can't paint over it. So depending upon the kind of permissions that you're given. The other way to delete a file that you've accidentally added is you can select files by clicking next to them. You'll see the little dot appear, and then you can click delete. It'll once again ask you, do you want to delete it? And then you can delete it. Now, I always tell people it's very hard to break SharePoint. I can usually recover things or find things for you, but that's going to depend on your organization. So if you don't have somebody who is super talented with SharePoint and you're afraid of deleting something, don't delete and just ask, is this okay for me to delete? Do you want me to move it somewhere? I was having a discussion with Holly, our intern, about how there is a folder that exists of files that might be able to be deleted, but people weren't sure. That's an okay option if it works for your team. Like you don't want to delete it because you're not sure if someone's going to need it. You can make that like archive folder or something else. So that is uploading files. Now let's say you want to download a file. Let's say that you need a form. We're going to go into forms. I want the North Dakota Rent Help Financial Assistance form. I can click on it and it'll open up. And you'll notice that it's opening up. You'll still see our SharePoint and these little things in the corner, but it'll open up the form. You can click the download button. It'll download a copy of it to your local computer so that you can print it and do what you want with it. You can also open it in your browser, so it'll open up in a separate window outside of SharePoint. Ta-da! Where you'll be able to once again save it, print it, whatever you need to do. The other option, if you know you have the right form and you don't have to look at it. So let's say I'm like, I need the North Dakota Rent Help Financial Assistance Request form and I don't want to wait for it to load. I can select it and click download because I know that's the one I want. Or if I know I want to download these ones, I can select them all and press download, and then I can download them all. So users, we've got about 10 minutes left. I want to leave it open. Do you guys have questions? Is there something that you would like to see happen? Want to see me do, see me try?
I have a question about what you just did.
Yes.
So I'm kind of following along on my own SharePoint site.
Okay.
And if they look the same as what you have. And when I click to open a document, it opens it in another tab, but it doesn't have the SharePoint frame around it. It's like going out to Excel or Word. So then I don't end up with a download button.
Okay, so let's do an Excel document. So certain Microsoft documents, so not pictures, not PDFs, not anything Microsofty. So let's say I'm opening Excel and you are seeing something more like this, right?
Yes.
So if you want to print or download this, you would go to File, Save As, and it's going to give you the option to download a copy, to save a copy, to rename the workbook. I always recommend people just download a copy to your computer. So if it's a Microsoft file like Word, Excel, a PowerPoint, it's going to open it in its web application. which drives me nuts because I'd really like it to open in like the program on my computer, but Microsoft wants you to do everything on the web. So I usually go to this, when I'm in here, I would go to File, Save As, Download a Copy. You can also click Share, and you can share it with other people. I don't recommend this because it'll try to share the link from SharePoint, and let's say Tasha, you're sending it to Tasha and Tasha doesn't have access, it'll tell her she can't get in. So I always like to download a copy and just send it that way if I don't know if this person has permission.
You know, your comment about wanting it to just open on the application that you have on your computer itself, I actually found how I could do that.
You can set the settings to do it, but then my computer gets mad at me, so I turn it off. So there's a lot of potential for it to open how you want to open it. All of the stuff that I have is set up. You can set it up to open in a new tab. You can have it just set up so that it automatically downloads. There's a lot of things that you can do with it. To keep things simple, I recommend just saving a copy. Other questions? Did that answer everything, Christina?
Oh, no, I have so many questions, but they're not, I'm not going to take up people's time. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have, I'll extend this out to everybody. If you have SharePoint questions, technology questions in general, I'm currently working on a technology survey that's going to go out to staff that asks you, how comfortable are you with technology? Do you use these programs? What kind of training do you want? There are a lot of individuals who utilize SharePoint that are the creators, administrators, more the back end getting it functioning. And so I want to see if there's interest in people learning how to create and organize their SharePoint and do more. So that there's potential out there. I'm available. I want to make sure that everybody across the network is comfortable using technology and the tools that we have. So I'm throwing that all out there to you guys, not just Christina, but if you have SharePoint questions and you don't want to ask them in the chat, or you feel like they're going to take a long time to answer, send me an email. We can set up a call. Maybe we can set up a short training for a group of people to go over a few more things as well.
Hey, this is Irv. I just have a quick question. Not a lot of people invite me to their houses, but as an example, can you explain, like as executive directors, did you send out invites that we're supposed to join? That may be a dumb question, but I'm learning this stuff.
So some sites I sent them out without any. So if you are using a CapND email address like Carmel, I have the option to not send you an email. I might add you so that you can always access it and not tell you that you can always access it, which was oversight on my part. So you might have access to some of these sites. Like this site has 60 members. I guess I didn't show anybody this. I can see who everybody is a member of this. So for example, Andrea's CapND, she's an owner. So she is one of the people who owns the house, but I'm pretty sure I have you on here. It's a very long list. I gotta make sure I have the right, because yeah, I have Brandon. Is yours administration? Is that you, Irv? Administration.
Yes, yep.
So so for you, you're a member of this site. You should have theoretically gotten an invitation to the party, especially for a site like this, since you don't live in the house. But those invitations sometimes end up in your spam or your junk, so you might not see them. Just like if you send an invitation in the mail, they might put it in the wrong. I get mail in my PO box that isn't mine all the time. So if you're ever not sure that you have access, I can always double check or send you links to make sure you can get in. But for executive director wise, I think I've added you all to every site that I have made live so far. Just so that we all have different levels of things that we do. So for example, Raquel might need access to fiscal, but not staff information. But executive directors kind of need to see it all. So I want you always to have access. So as executive directors, if you notice that you don't have an invitation to the party and you should, send me an email and I'll make sure you get the invitation to the party, or you already have an invitation, you just didn't know it yet. In this case, I don't think you knew it yet. Any other questions about SharePoint, invitations to the party? I like to think of it as houses, but also as a party, because parties are more fun than houses sometimes.
I guess I have a question. How would you get like a SharePoint site or page into like your Windows Explorer to be able to like save as directly to the SharePoint?
Okay, so you're talking about so normally you come out here, you'll have all these like folders and whatnot. Like I have this like little OneDrive guy or whatever.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out how to add them in here.
Yeah.
So in a document library, so where we store all of our stuff, it has a bunch of options up at the top. One of those is sync. I may regret doing this later, but if you click sync, it's going to say, we're going to connect your OneDrive to this library.
Okay.
I'm not actually going to do it because that's a really big library, but we're going to go to my OneDrive for a second. Please ignore the mess I have not organized. I feel like you're all at my house now. I have not organized my files. But let's say I want to put something in this weekly North Dakota Rent Help Emergency Fund requests. This is directly connected to, see if I can do this. Stop it. So you'll see that this is exactly the same as this. I've connected this section with my OneDrive so that I'm able to just save something from my computer into here, and then it'll populate on here. It's a little bit advanced. Sometimes the sync gets messed up. I've had to stop over at lots of people's desks when I was working at the local fire agency to try to fix the syncing, but it can be super helpful. We're going to be talking about OneDrive and another tech talk, and I've had a couple agencies ask me about OneDrive and how it works with SharePoint. So we can discuss that later, but if you have specific questions or you can't get your syncs to work, you can let me know that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? I lost the chat. Where did it go? I'm going to stop sharing so that I can see all your pretty faces. There you guys are. So thank you for joining with me with this very brief but very expansive introduction to SharePoint. I hope that the idea of SharePoint as a house or a regular everyday website helps you out a little bit. We will revisit SharePoint and Tech Talks again later this year. I believe the next SharePoint specific one, we're going to go over the things that Raquel was asking about syncing and those kinds of things. That's going to be in May, I believe. The next Tech Talk is March 23rd. It has been moved a week. I will be in DC with Irv for an NCAF work conference, and I wanted to make sure that Tech Talks got the attention they deserved instead of from my hotel room. So you guys will be receiving an updated email and an invitation moving that from the week before to the week after. I will also be sending a follow-up email to all of you with the slides, along with some additional resources that might be helpful for you as you're moving through. A recording of this is going up on our YouTube channel. I am working on getting that all set up. It's Train Cap ND. So I'm going to be putting more videos and things out there, including recordings of these Tech Talks. In addition to all of that, I told you about the tech survey that I'm going to send you. It's anonymous. A link will be included in the follow-up email. I just want to get an idea of how the network of community action in North Dakota as a whole feels about technology. Are you comfortable? Are you uncomfortable? Do you use certain things that you don't know about? Do you use things that you're really good at? So if you guys have a moment and you want to fill that out, it's very brief. I think it's like maybe 8 questions maximum. And then if you have any technology related or questions in general, feel free to send me an email. I will respond as quickly as I can to try to get you assistance and things, provide you any resources. I kind of just accidentally fell into helping everyone with technology. So if you have questions about SharePoint, Zoom, Outlook, OneDrive, anything like that, feel free to send them on over to me. You'll get the email from me, but my email is faithm as in Mike @capnd.org. And I will do my best to help you out, but we are at the top of the hour. So any questions you have, send me an email. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great weekend. And I heard that it's warm in Williston, but it's cold in Fargo, so I'm jealous. All right. Bye, everyone. You guys have a great weekend.